After much procrastination, I have finally got back into jewellery making, and I have been making all sorts of things actually. I have particularly become obsessed about lasso necklaces, which essentially are clasp-free necklaces. Now, I find clasps really fiddly, um, and I've also done the same thing with bracelets, because trying to do up a clasp on a bracelet when you live on your own is an absolute nightmare. So that's why I got really into making the braided. I make braided bracelets. They're stretchy, you can leave them on, you don't have to take them off when you have a shower or a bath, they dry, and it's a bit like having an elasticated bracelet, because you don't have to fiddle around with those stupid lobster clasps. So I've been really into that. You can see that I'm trying some ideas here. Where is it? There. With making them using the braiding technique that I use for my coasters. And you can see how they work. So this will have a point here where it's sealed, and then on here I will have whatever it is I decide to put on, maybe this, and you can see how that will work. But I've got all sorts of different ideas for these. So I also have some leather strap. There were leather laces that came on some shoes, and these are rubbish for tying shoes, but there's enough length in that to do a similar idea. And then you can extend it to take it off. You can make it a tighter fit at the top just by putting it like that. You can take the whole thing out and basically do whatever. So I'm having fun with this at the moment. I've got all sorts of bits of laces. I've got the braiding I'm going to try. There are all different ways that I can do this, and I've been really inspired by Pinterest, which has loads of ideas. So I've got all sorts of little pendant things that I've been pulling out of my stocks. I've been rooting around and pulling out all the beads, all the bits and pieces that have been sitting around waiting to be made into jewellery, and just looking at what I can now use, because I need to declutter this and I need to turn it into things. So I've got all sorts of fabulous little bits and pieces which need to be used for things and need a home. And this is how I work. This is the upcycle recycle aspect of what I do. This is such a big passion of mine. Like, I have bags of, I don't even know where these came from. I've got lots of little seed beads in different colours, and I bought some new head pins, really long, the thinnest ones I could get, because on the other sizes these don't fit, but on the really thin ones I can string those beads and I can do things like this. So, pairs of earrings. These are really fun, and I can do these in all different colours. So I'm having lots of fun with that. I am going away to my parents for 2 weeks. A week as of recording this, but at the time you see this I will probably either be there or I might even be back. And it's quite, I'm going to take some of this jewellery stuff with me and finish off, because there's less distraction down there. Here there's a lot more going on, so the whole studio is here, so I'm always trying a little bit of this, trying a little bit of that. When I go away I don't really have any sales because all my stuff is here, so I tend to shut down my stores, put them in vacation mode, because I can't sell something, and then I'll reactivate them 3 or 4 days before I come back, so that if there are sales I can get stuck back into that as soon as I get back. I was watching a YouTube post by Cara Bunting, who made a post recently, and the subject was that people don't care about handmade. And that probably sounds pretty harsh, but I agree. It's a really interesting post. I will include a link to that video in my show notes and you can go and have a look. I do agree that people don't care about handmade. And it means that over the years I've had to find different ways to work because I am inherently creative. That is what I do. I make stuff. But I've had to find a balance between making stuff and earning a bit and doing other work and making enough to survive, because I am essentially in my entire life self-employed. I don't have a paycheck. I live on my own, which makes everything more in my control, but a lot of things more expensive. Like, I don't have anyone to split my rent with. There are lots of things that I have to pay for all by myself. So I've had to get the balance right between, no, people don't care about handmade. And over the years I've come to this conclusion. But in order for me to make something out of what I do, because essentially one of the reasons I make things is to sell them. I don't just make things, put them in a box and that's the end of it. But I also need to earn enough to live on. So the flexibility is in what I do. I can put down and pick up projects whenever I want to. I don't tend to have many commissions, which means that my time is entirely my own. It's up to me. If I decide one week I'm not going to make anything this week, then I don't. If I decide I have 3 days and I'm going to do loads and loads and loads of stuff, I can. It's entirely up to me. And I can switch on and off very quickly to different types of work. I spent years of my life in full-time work, burning out mentally and physically, and it wasn't until I left those jobs that I realised that I was living on like constant high alert, under high stress. I didn't even realise. And it wasn't until I left and went through a massive mental and emotional crash that I realised how I'd been living 17 years of my life and I was never going to do it again. But I've had to find a happy balance between doing what I enjoy, not turning it into a chore, and still being able to survive. So I have lots of little side hustles of other things I do. I have a little bit of, I do some like cleaning jobs, which is a very recent thing that I've just taken up because it's an easy way to make a quick buck that just tops up my income enough. I only have 4 clients. I only do about 13 hours a week. It breaks up my routine. It gives me that little bit of responsibility towards somebody else, which keeps me on my toes. It gets me out several times a week. They're all close by jobs, so they don't require a lot of effort getting there. It's just cleaning work. And for most of them, I get to listen to podcasts, so that's great. And it gets me talking to people because I live on my own, because I work on my own. There can be whole weeks where I hardly speak to anybody, and this just adds a little layer. I also do surveys and market research. That brings in some money. I have passive income from savings. I don't have an enormous amount of savings, but what I have, I try to make it work as hard as possible for me. And I have income from Coffee, which is a donation site where people can donate to your YouTube work and other things like that. I've got a link in my show notes below, and people donate to that, and it just helps to tip the balance, because it takes hours to make a video. And this is another thing. I also do YouTube videos because I enjoy doing it. I don't do it just for the money. Now, this channel doesn't earn anything at all unless somebody wants to donate via the Coffee site. I have a personal channel, which is my frugal lifestyle type channel. That has been monetized, but it does not earn enough for the amount of hours that I do. I probably earn the equivalent of about £2 an hour when you look at what I make from AdSense, which is how YouTube pays you, and I look at the number of hours that I spend recording, editing and uploading videos. But it adds another level, so there's a small YouTube income there. And this means that I don't have to care why people buy handmade. And Cara was talking about how it isn't the handmade aspect that people buy. They buy because what you made is what they wanted. And it's not always quite about the price bracket. There are people who are willing to pay for handmade, and if you have made a thing, or you can make a thing for them that completely fits what they want because they can't find it elsewhere, that is the selling point more than anything. And they're not buying something because you handmade it. They're buying it because it fits what they want. So that's why I try to do quite a sizable range of things in different areas. So I do the coasters, I have the clothing, I do the jewellery, and I try to cover quite a wide range of styles, is because you don't know who is looking at your site and sees that one thing that is the thing that they want. And a lot of what I sell can be gifted. So particularly when, seasonal stuff, like, sorry to say, but Christmas is actually not that far away now. People will be looking, there will be people looking because they're fed up of what's on the high street. They're fed up with the same old generic tat. They're looking for something that's a little bit different. Maybe they've cut right back on their gifting, and instead of buying in quantity, they're buying higher quality but buying a lot less. So that one piece of jewellery, that one-off that you made that's in your shop, might be just the thing that they're looking for because they have a friend or a relative who is particularly into that style. So that's why I try to keep a fair range. I try not to make the same thing over and over again in different colourways, for instance, and in part because all my jewellery work is upcycle and recycle. I don't have those sorts of materials, so I don't buy chains in bulk. The only things I buy are findings, so earring wires, things like the head pins, because it's very hard to get that sort of thing secondhand, and particularly with things like earrings, you don't want to be selling on secondhand earrings. I mean, yes, you can clean them or whatever, but most people would like to know that that sort of thing is brand new to them. So over the years, I have admitted to myself, learnt that people don't care about handmade. That is not the selling aspect of it. It's what you do in terms of, are you filling a gap for them in their shopping needs? And the only way I can satisfy what I want to make, because of the type of creative person I am, with that, is not to put all my focus on this making all my money, because it gives me the autonomy back to say, well, I don't have to work 10 hours a day making tons and tons of jewellery because I have to make X amount of money this week. And it's a very saturated market. Handmade is saturated, crafting is saturated, the things I make are massively saturated, and you're undercut left, right and centre. And it's a real challenge. So by taking away the pressure to earn so much money every week, I can say, if you don't want it, don't buy it. I'm not under any pressure to discount everything, and I never do sales. Everything that I make is still undersold, because if you look at the hours that it takes to make one thing and the price of the item, you're never going to make your money. You don't have an hourly rate when you're a self-employed crafter. You just don't. Because if it takes you 3 hours to make something and the minimum wage is £11.44, you're not going to sell a pair of earrings for £30, or, let's say £30, plus all the materials. No one's going to buy a pair of those seed bead earrings for £50+. It doesn't work. So you're never going to truly realise your value, your time value, if you are crafting. Now, if you go and work in, say, a bridal shop and you're doing alterations, you may well be paid an hourly rate to do alterations, but that's a whole different thing, and that isn't necessarily the kind of crafting that satisfies your creativity. I've done it. I worked in bridal alterations for a couple of years in a previous existence when I was starting out self-employed, and I was grabbing other bits of work along the way as I tried to build my reputation. So that was one thing I did, and it was good experience. I probably wouldn't do it again because you know, I was living in house shares then and working from home, and I'd have to take the dresses home and work on them in my own time. They didn't have anywhere for me to work in the shop, so I'd end up with a rail with, like, you know, 10 or 15 bridal and bridesmaids and prom dresses on it, working stupid hours trying to re-sew on beads that had come off, taking up hems, taking in dresses for not even minimum wages. You know, they'd still haggle you down to the last penny. But I did it. I tried it. It became a very routine job. It was like working on a factory line. You weren't getting the enjoyment in the same way as I do now, which is where I get to create when I want, what I want, and that's the autonomy that I enjoy. I've now got to that point where I can do what I want. My business is a supplementary income. I have all those little income streams, and it's one of them. If I stopped earning tomorrow from my creative stuff, it wouldn't impact my life too much because I have all the other income streams. And that's basically how I do it. Because being a handmade crafting business full time and making enough to live on your own, I'm not talking about if you have a partner living with you or you live in a group house where everyone's paying in. I'm talking about as a single person living in my own property. I'm renting, I don't have a mortgage, and everything is down to you. There is no way on earth I could ever make enough money to pay for even a basic existence. So if you're thinking of doing this sort of thing, you need to think about your realistic expectations. You won't make enough money. But if you want to enjoy your craft, make it a supplementary income, find other things to fill the gaps. Really important to think about. So that's my thought for the day, whilst I am having fun making these necklaces, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. There's all sorts of different ways I can do them, and I'm playing around with ideas, and it's given me a little lift this week, you know. I'm going away next week. I'm going to plan what I'm going to take with me, and it's all good stuff. So I hope that was interesting. Comments and questions below, and I'll speak to you again soon. Speak to you soon. Bye!